Did you know that Brazil had its own real-life Dexter? He was the most prolific vigilante serial killer in history, a serial killer that only killed other criminals with a body count of way over 100 victims. Pedro Rodrigues Filho was born in the very small rural town of Santa Rita do Sapucaí in Brazil. I tried to pronounce that right. If I did not, please let me know in the comments. Pedro's dad was a very abusive, violent man, so much so that Pedro was actually born with permanent brain damage after his dad kicked his mom in the stomach while she was very much pregnant with him. Pedro was the oldest of many kids, and he really took on that protective older brother role. The area that his family was from was not the greatest, and Pedro's family did not have a lot of money, so by the time that he was only 10 years old, Pedro was already working at the slaughterhouse. Something very important that you need to know about Pedro was that from a very young age, Pedro had a very strong sense of right and wrong, a very strong moral compass and moral code, which would be the first of many similarities between him and Dexter from the TV show Dexter. If you've never seen the show, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite shows, but pretty much the character Dexter is a serial killer that only kills other serial killers, and he has a moral code where he can only kill people that he deems deserves it. Like I said, Pedro had this very strong sense of right and wrong. He was very passionate about standing up against what he thought was injustice and defending those that he thought were being treated unfairly. And when Pedro was only 13 years old, he decided to act out on this for the first time after he felt like his cousin had treated him unfairly. While working with his cousin one day, Pedro, at only 13 years old, pushed his cousin's arm into an industrial press, which crushed his cousin's arm all the way up to the shoulder before it ultimately got jammed. His cousin did survive, and Pedro's only punishment was to clean up the machine. Pedro felt no remorse. He felt like justice had been served. Only 1 year later, Pedro was 14 years old when his father was wrongfully fired from his job after a coworker lied and accused him of stealing. Family was already not doing that well financially, and now that his father had lost his job wrongfully, Pedro was watching as his younger siblings were starving. And since his dad was wronged, justice had to be served. So Pedro, at only 14 years old, killed for the first time. He killed the man that fired his dad. 1 month later, he killed the man that lied and got his dad fired. At only 14 years old, Pedro joined a gang, and he got pretty high up in the gang, and he gained a reputation of the kind of guy that you don't want to mess with. And then Pedro's entire life changed. Pedro fell in love. He fell in love with a woman named Maria. She was pregnant, so they were expecting their first baby. So Pedro tried to really turn his life around for Maria and his future child. He was still committing some crimes, like he was stealing, but it was more like Robin Hood, like Robin from Bad Guys. He turned his life away from organized crimes, but he still definitely had a lot of enemies. One day, Pedro came home and he found